Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is debunk all these Formula One compression ratio theories. So, bit of a Formula One fan, geek, whatever you want to call it. And there's been a little bit of controversy between a few of the engine suppliers that have been kind of speeding as far as the rules are concerned. And what I mean by that is like an accountant, you can have a 55 mile an hour accountant or a 75 mile an hour accountant or a 150 mile an hour accountant, and they're all doing stuff that's a little bit more and more illegal, and you might get caught and you might not. So you get to choose what accountant you want to use. It seems like Mercedes and the Red Bull Ford consortium is kind of playing a little bit higher speed limit accountant when it goes by the rules. And what I mean by that is the rules say that your compression ratio of the engine can't exceed 16:1 ever. I'm paraphrasing. But it's checked when it's ambient temperature, which is like 20 C or something. So all the I've been waiting for some engine expert to come in and say, oh, this is how they're doing it, and they all got it wrong, my personal opinion. So they're all saying that they're using some highly expanding material for the pistons or the connecting rods. Most people seem to think it's pistons. But the expansion of the piston is short. Like the piston's only maybe an inch tall. 25, maybe 30 millimeters is the height of the piston. And that's going to grow from the top of the pin up, right? So that's even less. That might be 15 millimeters. It's just the ring pack. So in order to gain any kind of significant advantage of having that expand, it would have to be really high. It'd have to be like a plastic expansion ratio or more. So I'm pretty sure that's not it. Plus, pistons are a highly developed part, and I doubt anybody's gonna use an unknown material for that. And the same thing goes with connecting rods. Like you can use a connecting rod that has a higher expansion ratio. You can make it of aluminum, for instance, but they only get 4 motors for the season. So to go to some exotic material that has unknown fatigue properties seems highly unlikely. Like you could go to a titanium rod, which would do the exact opposite. You go to an aluminum rod, which doesn't have an infinite fatigue life, so your SN curve is, it's constantly sloping down. Whereas a steel rod, which I assume most are running a steel rod, it has an SN curve that's infinite, right? It's fails up here and then it goes. It's just, you can run below this threshold forever. So I think what they're doing, and if I were in the and there's some clever people in F1, so I'm pretty sure the people that go into reporting on F1 aren't as clever as people that are actually doing engineering work. Those who can do, those who can't teach kind of thing. I think they're using a negative expansion coefficient. So normal materials like aluminum or steel have an expansion coefficient, thermal, CTE is what it's called, coefficient of thermal expansion, that when it gets hot, it gets longer. Aluminum's around 20 to 23, depending on the alloy, and steel's like 12, 11, 12, 13, something like that. And it grows for every, that's like inches, it's like 20 to the -6 inches per inch or millimeter per millimeter per degree Celsius. So the longer it is, or the higher temperature delta is, the more it'll grow. And working in the field of fuel injectors many years ago, that was a heated fuel injector, so the fuel was at 300 degrees C. So it would have to work at low fuel temperatures and high fuel temperatures. Otherwise, the customer would have to wait for 20 minutes for the thing to get hot. So, kind of manipulating all of the metal pieces inside there to not change the spring force on the pin was a challenge. And so there's materials that have very low CTE, and one of those is Invar. But there's a whole range of Invar. Like you can get it from a CTE of like 1.5 to like 7 or 8. Like depending on the alloy, you can like mix and match. But there's also a material called Alvar, which is a titanium-based alloy. Kind of the density is between aluminum and steel, mass-wise. But that has a CTE of -30. So 30 to -6 millimeter per degree C. So what that means is if you increase the temperature of like the cylinder barrel, not necessarily the liner, but the cylinder barrel, by 200 degrees, 100 degrees, whatever, it's going to shrink. And when it shrinks, now the cylinder head is moving down and getting closer to the piston. And there's already an issue with the piston and the connecting rod, which are going to grow, right? It's just, they can't make it not grow unless they use, again, an exotic material. But these exotic materials aren't made for really high stress. So what I think they're doing is they're running conventional pistons like from last year and conventional connecting rods like from last year. And they're just making their cylinder shrink when it gets hot. And you could go, depending on how you designed it, you could make that cylinder whatever length you wanted to get the desired results. Because you're controlling the temperature of everything, right? So you know what it's going to be. The other thing that makes it work in the Formula One environment is they preheat the motors before they start them up to get all the clearances right. They don't like just go out and they get a 40-day and crank it, right? They pump umbilical fluid through it to get it all warmed up. And so that may not work with an Invar scenario because might smash things if it's too cold. So that's what I think they're doing. And I don't know why nobody is mentioning that, but it seems pretty obvious if you have an engineering knowledge and a material selection knowledge. I don't know why they haven't figured it out. I've been, oh, somebody's figured it out. And I poke the button and it's like, nope, they think it's a fucking piston again. Jesus Christ, what the hell are they doing? Anyway, again, this is all my opinion. I don't work with anybody in Formula One. I don't know anybody in Formula One. I didn't steal any information from anyone in Formula One. This is my personal opinion. If I were going to cheat, that's what I would do. However, I would never cheat because that would be against the rules. So anyway, I'd appreciate feedback because maybe I'm missing something, but like the block is like a very low, I mean, it's got to be stiff. I get that because part of the chassis and stuff, which doesn't have to be, but everybody uses it as stress member. So it's relatively low stress, and if you wanted to make it lower stress, you should make it a little bit thicker. And yeah, the other thing that kind of gets me wondering why these people can't figure it out is they keep saying the teams are trying to go from 16:1, which is the new compression ratio limit, to 18:1, which is the old one. There's no reason why 18 is a magic number. That's just what last year's regulations allowed. They might want to go to 19:1 or 20:1 or maybe 17:1 is the right number. I don't know. They know because they can run on their dyno, they can run their simulations and figure out what the actual compression ratio is. So yeah, 18:1 is probably not it. It's probably up higher because they're kind of running this thing it's kind of a hybrid motor. It has been for a long time since they did the fuel flow stuff. So it's probably running as a spark ignition engine in some regimes, and it's running as a compression ignition in other regimes because they need the efficiency. So I have a feeling 18-to-1 is not the optimum, right? That's just what last year's regulations were. So all the journalists are kind of glomming onto that number like it's magical, but I'm sure it's not. I'm sure there's some other number, and it's probably different for every team because they use different fuel formulations and they have different, you know, their combustion charge motion is different, and anyway, their strategies are probably slightly different from regime to regime, but anyway, I think it's Alvar or something similar to that. That's getting them where they need to go. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this content. If you don't, it was only like 8 minutes of your life.